This is the sketch of my character. Do you know? We're gonna do the line art. Where's my face, guys? We're using this as a screen recording. So yeah, there's all on websites and stuff. So I don't need you guys don't need to download anything when you're trying to make it. Let me do a second sketch. Let's see. Ooh. I'm gonna color this. Yes. Oh yeah. Most of this is going to be like with. Oh god. I don't know. $151. Oh. Now the coloring. No wait. It's actual liner this time. Shush. Shush. Okay. Mm.
Okay, so the second video is basically telling you guys how to draw anatomy, and the first tip is to use references. You have to use references, okay? But whenever somebody doesn't know how to draw something, always tell them go look at references. References are going to change your life. For example, if you don't know how to draw a head, you might want to go to one of your enemies and you might want to take their skull, and you might want to reference something like this so that you know how a human head is supposed to look. This used to be my head. Stick figure method. I recommend not using the stick figure method. There's a stick figure method? What on earth? Oh, so here's where I have a problem with this. You have me at references, but you lost me. The first step that this person is saying to do is to use guidelines. Now, I agree with that. Okay, you want to make sure that you find the vertical line of your face, you want to make sure you find the eye line, you want to make sure you find the shoulder line, the gesture line, and all that. But the second step this person is saying to do is to use 3D shapes, aka boxes. Now, this is a no-no for me. Okay, so I know people personally who use boxes, and it seems to work for them. But the thing is, within the human body, there's nothing that even closely resembles a box. If you want to learn three-dimensional shapes of the human body, look at that skeleton right there. Right? Look at the shape of the ribcage, like a big egg, and look at the shape of the pelvis, it's like a boulder. There's nothing in there that resembles a box, and I think adding in a box is really just adding in an extra level of comprehension that you need to have in order to really draw that human body. I honestly think it's way better to just learn the structure of that skeleton and not try to fit everything into a box. I don't like boxes. Okay, boxes are not for me. Alright, so I've skipped forward and this is the final step, which is adding in the outline. But you see what happened here is once you have the boxes in there, the outlines become so stiff, like you have to work around these rigid shapes that don't belong in the human body. What would have made this way more powerful is if you had an actual shape of the rib cage, this oval shape that ends with these two round that didn't look right. Flow understructure of your body that's going into something that when you have that, the figure that you draw on top of it is going to have a lot more flow, a lot more fluidity, a lot more expressiveness. No boxes. Repeat after me. No boxes. For everybody works differently. If boxes are just, they really work for you, do your thing. You just get your friends. Stop video was pretty good, but you lost me at the steps a little bit. So I would give that a 6 out of 10. Right now. Let's get started. Okay, so the first mistake I see a lot of artists do is chicken scratch line. Basically, 300,000 likes. That's a very popular video. So the first thing that this person mentioned is chicken scratching. Chicken scratching is something that's very common to beginners because you might be unsure of where to put this line. You might be not super familiar with the way your hand moves. So you just draw a small incremental lines that make up one bigger line. And then all your lines start looking like kind of fuzzy, you know. So that's something that you don't want to do. That's a very good tip. Usually with line art and sketching, you know, the sign of somebody who's really good at that is they're able to say a lot with very few lines. So that's a very good point. That's definitely something you want to practice. You want to draw lines in one single stroke instead of doing it like a little chicken scratching. Be more confident, guys. So instead of doing that, lay on the foundation first, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so the second tip is saying draw structure lines first instead of just drawing the outline of your subject. And I think that is a very good tip, especially for beginners. You want to make sure that you really hammer down the foundational structure of the subject that you're drawing. When you see me drawing sometimes, you know, you're going to see that I just start with the outline of the character, but that's because I understand the construction lines and how everything is set up. So I don't really need to draw that base for me to build on top of. But for people who are at intermediate and beginner levels, it's very good to set down construction lines. So that's a good tip. But I like his drawing from just the outline better than the one with construction lines. Yeah, the outline one was better, man. I don't know. This method might not be working for you. Last tip is to stop choking your pencil. He's saying to stop holding it so close to the tip, stop squeezing this thing, and just let your hand hang a little bit looser and a little bit further behind. This is a very good tip too, because when you're drawing, especially on a bigger surface, you want to make sure that there's a lot of movement within your hand and your fingers, and you can get some really nice gestures in there. But if you were choking your pencil like that, it's going to be very hard for you to make big, free gestures. This video is very good. I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. Good job, Miss AJ Art, for teaching the babies the right way to do things. I'm going to teach you how to improve your line art. Next. Stop drawing sketches like this. You are ruining your art. You should start off all of your sketches with a shape kind of like this. You can draw it super fast, which means your proportions are. Hold on. Oh my goodness. No, not like this. Not like this. The shape of our ribcage and pelvis affects poses a lot. Okay, so this video by the Enchanted Pencil is saying to lay down a foundational sketch like this. Everybody draws things differently. Okay, let's just put that out there first. But I really don't think that there's any rhyme or reason to the shape of that rib cage and the shape of that pelvis. The pelvis is not a box. Okay. Once again, I'm fighting boxes. If you want to do this, if you want to draw that construction layer for your character, it would be much more beneficial for you to draw the actual shape of the skull, the actual shape of the rib cage, which is this organic kind of oval shape. I wouldn't really
Let's see if this works. Yes! Finally! Oh my god, we have a vertical one. That took me too long to draw.
The example here is not the most viable, so I'm going to give that a 4 out of 10. For sketching and painting, I highly recommend drawing on a non-white background. I recommend making your background color a neutral gray, slightly darker, warm color. Try experimenting and find the color that works for you. Okay, so this video is basically saying in the beginning stages of your painting to not draw on just a plain white canvas to avoid eye strain. And that's actually a very good tip. I know a lot of people like to work on gray canvas so that they're able to better see the contrast between the lights and the darks. But the thing is, when you start adding color to that underlayer, instead of just using a neutral gray, now that color is actually going to affect the kind of colors that you put on top of it. You can try this out yourself. When you paint on a blue background versus when you paint on an orange background, the colors that you choose and the mood of that painting are going to change as a result. So don't use the colors that are pretty with your background just because it's pretty. Choose them strategically. For example, if you got a sunset painting, you might want to put that background color as orange. Or if you have a night scene, you might want to put that background color as a dark blue. But the first tip to work on a neutral gray background is very good. That's a tip that you could always use if you find the white to be a little bit too strong. Very, very good tip there, but kind of didn't mention the effect that that underlayer color might have on the painting. So I'm going to give that a 7. I'm starting to notice a trend. These videos are a little bit too short for you to get all the information in there. So, you always got to take these with a grain of salt. This guy again. Using shapes. Shapes are good for all the drawing, of course. Even more impressive when you want to create cool characters for whatever you're trying to do. Tip number 1 is to use shapes, which I agree with. If you're drawing a stylized character, you might want to fit them into a triangle, you might want to fit them into a circle. Just using shapes for a character creates a very iconic silhouette, and I know that's something that a lot of people use. So that's a very solid tip right there. By using boxes, cylinders, characters are great way to. He just said boxes, and I'm a little bit triggered right now. The next tip is very important. That is exaggerating your poses and proportions of your characters. Oh my god. She's thick. He's saying to exaggerate the proportions and poses of your characters. Now this makes sense in certain scenarios. Obviously, if you're drawing a stylized character, this makes sense because you want to push the proportions to make them look visually interesting and iconic. But if you're drawing a more realistic character, this tip might not really apply. But I think overall, it's still pretty solid tip. And the last and final tip is clothing. Clothes and weapons also come with the character concept. Just look more pictures for every bit. Last tip was clothing. I didn't really see the point in the last tip. Like, what, you just gotta put clothes onto your characters? No. Not as solid as the first video I saw of this guy, but still pretty good. I give that a 6 out of 10. Oh my goodness. Deadly art mistakes. Wow. I'm hooked. Number 1, skipping the basics. Anatomy perspective ain't sexy, but they're the crucial foundation all your art is built on. Build that foundation by practicing drawing shapes in perspective and doing anatomy studies every day. I like that. Okay, we gotta build the foundation. Don't skip the foundation. Very good. Very good. Friends and I completely transform your art as long as you put it on. Just 10 minutes a day will transform your art. That's so good. Oh, the video. Stop. There was only one mistake you mentioned in this video. I thought it was going to be multiple because it said deadly art mistakes. Super good tip. But 1 out of 10 for clickbaiting me. Oh, so this one's more like motivational stuff. Stop saying I hate it, I can't draw. Stop saying my art sucks. Stop saying everyone is better than me. Pretty good start. Yes, you have to do this. Okay, so that's so good. Okay, so when you're drawing something and you're like, I don't like this piece. Instead of just saying I hate myself, I'm going to quit art forever now and I'm going to delete my Instagram account. Ask yourself, why don't I like this piece? What is it about this piece that's bothering me? Could it be the eyes of the character? Could it be the proportions of the character? Could it be my rendering or my stylization? What is it that I don't like in this drawing? And that is going to tell you about your weaknesses as an artist, and it's going to give you some things that you can actually work on. So if you don't like a drawing that you made, don't let it be something that is destructive for you. Instead, make it something productive. And the last point of this video was to be patient with yourself. Very good point. You gotta be patient with yourself. Art is gonna take a serious amount of time for you to improve. So don't expect results overnight, but instead, when you look back on your work from maybe a couple months ago or even a year ago, you're gonna see the differences if you keep putting in the work. It's really a grind. It's just like working out. You know, your arm is not going to get huge after one session of the gym. You got to be consistent. You got to go repeatedly. You got to form good habits, and you got to be patient with yourself. That's a very good video. 10 out of 10. Good job.
Draw two squiggles that come to a point. Then just continue after the inside and repeat the pattern. You can use this technique for grass, hair, ribbons, bandages, and even horns. You can shade roughly to get a fancy brush.
I mean, that's good.
Here's 5 common anatomy mistakes.
Oh, let's go. 5 common anatomy mistakes. I can't wait.
One, completely forgetting about the forehead. We can't ignore this any longer. It's like you karate chop the cerebellum. Just remember that the eye is usually in the middle of that guide circle, and the mouth is at the bottom. Number 2.
That's kind of facts, actually. So if you look at what used to be my enemy here, look at how big that top of the skull is. Right? Look at how much brain. I see a lot of people put art into my roast sessions, and I keep having to point out the fact that you gotta put a cranium in there. You can't forget about the roundness of the skull. You gotta keep that in mind. Don't chop the head out.
Is drawn only with straight lines. Rarely anything on the human body is a straight line. And this is due to the shape of our muscles, which we won't get into right now.
This is something that I think is a little bit more subjective. I know there are artists out there who like to use more rigid lines. I know there are artists who like to put more structure into their drawings. For example, there's that artist whose name I am blanking on. He did the concept artwork for The Last of Us Part 2. And you can see right here that their work is very much composed of straight lines. So this is something that's a little bit more subjective. You know, it depends on your style. You don't have to curve your lines if you don't want to. You can, you don't have to use straight lines if you don't want to. You can do what you want.
Drawing the smile with all the teeth.
Oh.
You can leave some space and it'll look amazing.
Yeah, number 3 is a good point. Drawing a smile with all the teeth. Okay, whenever I'm drawing a smile, I usually just put the teeth as one big white slab instead of drawing the individual teeth. You know, that's usually what makes the smiles look so creepy.
I used to do this too, but a foot has curves in it. It's like a triangular shape.
I don't know too much about feet.
Drawing the body one part at a time. Draw the form before the details, and I promise it'll.
Yes, you gotta set down the foundation before you draw the details. Okay, so this is she's saying not to start with small details and go one part at a time, and the next thing you know, your character's got a huge lower body, but their upper body is like tiny because you got carried away. Good point. I thought this person is spark it, knows what they're doing. I'm gonna give that a 9 out of 10. If it weren't for your hate towards straight lines, I would have given you a 10 out of 10.
I find myself repeating this tip a lot when so basically, you should be able to identify the 3 biggest points of dead eyes. Oh yeah. I'm gonna make this a video longer